Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Australian Vapers Broadcast Network. We have a beautiful JoJo here as always, but here is our special guest, Vince van Heerden. Vince, say hi to everybody.
G'day everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
we can all hear you perfectly.
So. Sounds okay. Good, everyone?
Good sound.
Hey, Leah.
Okay, guys, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to explain a few things to you guys. For all of you that don't know, Vince is the first ever person to be prosecuted for selling e-devices. As you all know, we're supporting Vince to the maximum. We have been ever since we started our show, guys. So yous have asked for all these answers and that. Well, instead of us giving you, links that maybe smear campaigns, we've given you the man himself, Vince van Heerden. Now take the floor, Vince, and tell him everything you got to tell him, bro, because I'm telling you now, they're going to absorb everything like sponges.
All right, well, look, to be honest, I'm not sure exactly what people do want to hear. So if anyone has a particular question that they want me to discuss, that would probably be my preferred way to get going. I think at this point in time, most people already know most of the backstory of what's going on. Yeah. But if I can clarify or expand upon that knowledge, happy to do so. So,
for some of our American viewers, they may not be as familiar with your case, Vince. So it would really be awesome if you could just give them, a rough rundown of exactly what happened that day when you got raided and where it all started and snowballed from.
All right. Well, the basic backstory here is in, I guess it was probably the end of 2010, sometime around that. Well, actually, I don't know when. It was probably 2009 when I started vaping myself. I discovered the devices I'd been smoking my whole life. But it started when I was 13. It was healthy when I started. By my mid-20s, I developed some seriously bad asthma, and but it didn't stop me. I mean, I quite literally would be driving to work, and I'd have my electronic cigarette in the one hand, my tobacco cigarette in the one hand, and next to me on the seat was my asthma puffer.
Yep.
And I'd literally take a drag, cough, and then take a puff of my asthma spray, and backwards and forwards this went. And so it was a pretty sickening situation, but that's it. I was addicted and loved my smokes, and there was no alternative. And then I became aware of electronic cigarettes through a friend who happened to be using one day. And I was like, oh, what's that? Same story that everyone else has. So they see somebody and they, what's that? And I bought my first electronic cigarette from Totally Wicked. And as soon as I got it, it was a transformative process for me. I never had a cigarette again. Well, no, that's not entirely true. I never had a cigarette again until I went out on the drinks one night with a bunch of friends, woke up in the morning, and I'd lost my e-cig.
Yep.
And, well, I couldn't buy them in Australia. So, it took me a few weeks to get the money together to buy another kit from Totally Wicked, and in that time I smoked again. But once I got my replacement kit, I was back to vaping. And that was the case for a few months until, again, I lost it. And I went back to smoking until I got my next kit. And I thought, this is ridiculous. Why can't we buy these in Australia?
Yep.
Why should I have to pay expensive shipping, have these delays? And, and what happens if, your device just breaks or, you lose your stuff and you can't replace it? So that was the motivation for starting the business. And so I think the business probably started in 2010, sort of like towards the end of 2010. And at first it was just, selling to friends and family that I knew, and then gathering all the money to try and put together a website. And, by 2011, at the end of 2011, we were probably the first, I'd say we were the first electronic cigarette vendor in Australia. We weren't the only ones by November 2011, but at that point we'd had enough time on the market that we were now appearing, on page 1 of Google for many search terms. So we were just hitting a point where the business could actually potentially make money, because up until that point, all I'd done was sink my own money, buying stock with credit cards, paying for everything that it takes to get a business going. And then, randomly, without warning, some black SUVs rock up at my house, and a whole bunch of health department officials present a search warrant and come into my home and pretty much just ransack my place. They just go through everything. They looked in places that you have no business looking, just because, yeah, vape Jesus, I'm a criminal.
Yeah.
And they, after an hour and a half, they had finally bagged and tagged enough stock. They took everything that they could find. They walked out of the house with, I think it was like 3 black garbage bags of stock, and all I had was a receipt to say that this is what they've taken, and the threat that what I was doing was breaking the law.
Yeah. And
I was completely shocked because I never honestly believed that I was breaking the law. When I thought about starting the business in the first place, I looked up all the relevant laws, and I did actually stumble across the Tobacco Controls Act, and I found Section 106A, and it described, the wording of the legislation says, it is illegal to sell a product that is not a tobacco product, but is designed to resemble a tobacco product, that is a food, toy, or other. Yep. And I looked at that and I thought, okay, well, it's definitely not a food, it's definitely not a toy. Other, I read to be qualified by, and I actually asked a lawyer, and he agreed with me. In fact, 2 separate lawyers agreed with me that the word other, as it came after the words food and toy, derived its meaning from food and toy.
Yep.
Because if other was meant to be a word that meant anything at all, then the words food and toy were superfluous. There was just no reason to have them. You would just say any product.
I agree.
So anyway, but I still thought to myself, I don't want to sell the cigar-likes, because that would probably draw the attention of the health department, and so I made a very active choice when I picked the hardware. I chose igo-Ts and 510Ts, and they looked, and they were currently the best technology available at the time as well. So, it was a dual purpose here. One, I was making an active choice not to sell something that absolutely looked like a cigarette, and B, I was selling a product that worked as opposed to the cigar-likes, because the majority of them just really don't work. They just don't produce enough vapor. Yep. And they leak, and they're just not very good devices. So anyway, I was shocked. I contacted a lawyer, went through all the details with them, had some interviews with the health department, which I basically didn't really comment on anything, because that was what my legal advice was just don't say anything, nothing to be gained by it.
Yep.
And then that's it. Then nothing happened for like a long time. They took all my stuff. They didn't give it back. They wouldn't give it back. And they made basically no contact with me for about 2 years. And then, again, with no sort of other correspondence, I just suddenly get a notice that I'm due to appear in court. And so then the next round of legal bills happened, and at that point I switched lawyers, because the first lawyer, he looked like he was a good lawyer. He certainly had very good qualifications, but he felt very much like one of those guys that bills you for everything, just bill. So I switched lawyers, and the new lawyer was good, and we eventually had our day in court at the magistrate's court, and the judge said that in her opinion, the devices that I was selling didn't resemble a cigarette. She said they looked more like a ballpoint pen, and she dismissed the case, and I was acquitted, and they were forced to return my stock, which after I got the stock and actually took it home and looked at it, was no longer saleable. I don't know what they did, if they stored it in, like, I don't know, someone's garden shed or something, but like it had all rusted, and like none of it was saleable anymore. So, and the irony for me it was that, as I said, the business had been struggling along. It had finally got to a point where it was really going to become profitable, and I just dumped several $1,000s into buying all this stock about a week before they raided us.
Yep. And
so, yeah, they took a huge chunk of my credit, and then destroyed its resale value. So now I've got a whole bunch of shit that I can't do anything with. I've had to throw it all away. And yeah, and so that's what we thought it was at. We thought we'd won. And then 3 weeks later, almost exactly 3 weeks later, as it turns out, they had 21 days to appeal. And on I think the 21st day, I got a notice saying that they had in fact appealed. And now we had to go to the Supreme Court. And yeah, it gets really expensive once you leave the magistrate's court and head into the Supreme Court world.
Yeah, it would.
And yeah, so that went on for, well, I don't know, a couple of months. And the ultimate decision that was reached was that the judge decided that in her determination, the magistrate had erred when she had failed to consider all of the way that the product is used. See, the magistrate said, limited her determination to the physical properties of it. Whereas the judge said, no, you've got to consider all matters of its use. It's got to be, you know, everything to do with the hand to mouth, the exhalation of vapor, and when you put all those things together, it does bear some resemblance to a cigarette, and therefore is subject to Section 106A. And so she found me guilty, and then another month passed, or 2 months passed, between then and sentencing, because the prosecution this whole way through have never taken a stance that, like, I'm the only person who's ever done this, you know, the first person to ever be charged, there's no way I could know I was breaking a law. They're out for blood. They petitioned the judge to give me the maximum penalty, saying that you know, a powerful deterrent message had to be sent out. And so sentencing went backwards and forwards, because at the last, like, every dirty trick the prosecution could pull, they did try and do. You know, they tried to introduce submissions like 2 days or 1.5 days before actual sentencing, you know, to basically give us no chance to review the information. So, you know, we managed to actually get the court to grant us like a week or two to introduce our own submissions and all the rest of it. But yeah, at the end of the day, that's basically what's happened. And at this point, I'm now the first person to be criminally convicted anywhere in the world for selling electronic cigarettes or personal vaporizers, as you may prefer to call them. And at this point, I'm now looking to appeal that decision to the Supreme Court. The appeal now goes to the Court of Appeals, which is a court of the Supreme Court, which is chaired by 3 separate judges. And we feel that we have a very strong argument. It is my belief, and it was always my belief from the very beginning, that Section 106A was never designed to block electronic cigarettes or personal vaporizers. These products were designed as a harm reduction device. They were designed as an alternative. And the purpose of 106A was to prevent negative health outcomes as a result of tobacco consumption. So it was to stop the normalization to children. You know, the law was actually very specifically brought in for one reason. There was a lolly that was marketed when I was a kid called Fads or Fags, these little cigarette lolly candies.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, most of us in our generation will remember them.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I completely agree with the law. That law was a good law, because the tobacco companies, you know, the ones that actually make cigarettes, you know, that's who a tobacco company is. They are quite evil. You know, they really don't care about whether or not their customer base dies, so long as they make a profit. And they were using those devices to try to normalize this stuff to children, and it was a good law. But when the lawmakers made it, they never meant to block a product that could save millions and, you know, and globally speaking, billions of lives.
Yep.
That wasn't their goal. They didn't pass the law to say, no, if you start smoking, you've either got to quit or die. No, it was about harm minimization. It was about reducing exposure to these products. These products are not tobacco products. They don't have, there's no combustion. There's no comparison at all. So that's the angle that we're now appealing to, is that we're claiming that the judge, in making her determination against me, has in fact discriminated. That because we haven't gone to the TGA, we shouldn't be afforded any exclusion from 106A.
Yeah,
it's our legal opinion that having a TGA approval is not the prerequisite for a device to be therapeutic or to be harm minimizing. It would be great to get that, but it's not realistically possible for any small or medium-sized business. It's pretty much only possible for the big tobacco or pharmaceutical companies.
So I remember you saying about the patent, about the actual description of the patent of the original cigar-like. I remember you telling me that, and that blew me away. So maybe some of the people on the show here would like to hear that, so that way they can understand where you're coming from in that aspect and how your thoughts are on potentially flipping that.
Yeah, well, okay. So when we talked about all this stuff in the early days with the lawyers, they asked me and they said, where did these devices come from? And I said, well, they were invented in China. And as soon as I said that, the lawyers went, we'll never know, what the designed intention was. But I was wrong. I hadn't done proper research on it. I was technically correct. They did kind of get invented in China. But if you go much further back, the very first electronic cigarette was invented in 1965 by a guy, Herbert something or other. Can't remember his surname at the moment. And he actually lodged a patent, and he stated that the devices that he designed were designed, in fact, to resemble a tobacco cigarette because it would be more appealing to existing smokers. It was meant to provide a less harmful, healthy alternative to traditional smoking, allowing people to give up and choose something less harmful. So the very first inventor quite clearly stated in his design intentions in the patent that these were not meant to be a tobacco product. They were quite contrary. They were supposed to take people off tobacco for the purpose of harm minimization.
Yep.
So that's where it first comes from. Now, no one bought into that guy's product. He was never able to market it, and patents have a 25-year expiry. And back in, I think it was 2006. I think it was 2003. I can't remember. It was around 10 years ago. A Chinese pharmacist, what's his name? The name will come back to me in a second. Anyway, a Chinese pharmacist's father died of lung cancer, and the Chinese pharmacist, he himself was also a smoker and was really concerned about his own health and morbidity, and he was trying to quit, and he was using things like patches and having a really bad experience with it. And Honlik, that's right, thanks Nanga. Honlik, yeah. And Honlik had a particularly disturbing dream one night, but what came from that dream was the inspiration for what is now the modern electronic cigarette. And he too has also lodged patents. And he too states in those patents that these were designed as a harm minimization product. They were designed as an alternative. So now what the lawyers have is clear, unequivocal, undeniable, stated proof, patented, verifiable in every way, what the actual intentions of the designers were. So now they can't argue about, well, that's not what they were designed. No, we know what they were designed for. It doesn't matter that, right now I'm holding a CE5 in my hand, okay? All of the modern electronic cigarettes are derivatives of Honlik's modern-day recreation of Herbert's invention from 1965.
Yep.
Yeah.
So every one of these has the same design intention. The method and operation may vary slightly by model to model, which is natural as products evolve. But the intention, the design intention for which the patents exist, is clear and understood. And just because I don't have $3 million and 3 years for clinical trials doesn't mean that I shouldn't be allowed to sell a product that was designed to be a harm minimization product, that was designed to reduce the addiction to cigarettes and to give people a less harmful alternative. It would be inane to take that stance. Yet that is exactly the stance that has been taken. And we don't think it's going to hold up against a panel of 3 judges. When they look at, if you read the legislation, almost everything in it, words about harm minimization, there's only one thing that the prosecution's going to try and grasp at, which is they talk about normalizing cigarette smoking to children, and so they're going to probably try and latch onto that. But again, if you look at all of the science that has been done and all the studies that have been done, there have been no studies that have shown a strong correlation between electronic cigarette use and the normalization and the uptake of tobacco smoking in children. In fact, a great deal of studies have shown that there's been no impact or negligible impact. I read one study where they had surveyed, I think it was 1,900 male US kids aged from like 11 to 19 or something.
Yep.
And of all of them that have been sampled, only 0.5% had ever tried an electronic cigarette where they hadn't first tried tobacco. So I don't think there's much water to the argument that this is a normalization tool, or that this is some trick of the tobacco companies to insidiously slip a back door in to open up advertising and hurt our children. No, this is something that was designed to save billions of lives. And that's what we're fighting for, the right for us all not to get sick, not to die early, for us to have our parents in our lives, for our grandparents to see their grandchildren grow up and be parts of their lives, not simply get sick and not be able to run around in the park with them because they've got emphysema, and to not see them graduate because they died 20 years earlier than they should have, because a less harmful, clearly more healthy alternative was legislatively denied them. And the irony being that there's no way the legislators ever intended for this to happen. This is literally the health department finding a loophole and exploiting it. You know, if they had a genuine grievance with electronic cigarettes, then I would put the onus on them. I would put the emphasis on them. The ball is in your court. Show me the science where it shows that these are far more harmful, or in any way more harmful than a cigarette. If you cannot show me that these are more harmful than a cigarette, then you should not have any right to pass a law that blocks them. And the reason they haven't gone down the legislative route is because A, it takes time, B, it costs money, and C, you would kind of have to have any scientific ground to do it from. And not having that, it would never pass. So the only way they could do it was to try and find an existing law and repurpose it, like, you know, horribly repurpose it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, it's borderline evil. Well, no, I'd put it on the evil scale. It's evil. People are going to die. You're denying people the right to not get sick and not die. There's nothing else except evil that sums that up.
Yeah. Totally agree with you 100%, Vince. And, you know, like when we had our discussion the other night, you said something that really impacted me, and I actually didn't really think about it. Like, it struck me straight away, but then the next day, Jojo and myself, when we went to hang out having a chat, the part about how you were saying that it's not about you and how it's about the people that you don't know, that was what impacted me so much. And the next day, it made me feel so good that we are doing this, the Australian Vapers, and supporting you and supporting any vapor along the way, but mainly supporting you and the Australian Vapers and all the vaping community. I'd love to get you to describe it to them the way you did me, mate, because it really impacted me in a really amazing way. It did. It truly did.
Look, it's a simple concept. I didn't know you until recently, very recently.
Yep.
But your life has meaning. Your life has purpose. There's a whole bunch of people in your life that if you weren't there, they would be horribly impacted. And just because I didn't know you doesn't mean that your life isn't really important. The fact is, my business is dead and gone. I don't know that I'll have the energy, motivation, or financial means to bring it back from the dead, even if I do win this thing. But that's, as I said, is not why I'm doing this anymore. I'm doing this because this is clearly morally evil on the health department's part. It's a crime against humanity. And this isn't a job that I asked for. It's not a position that I aspire to. This is something that I've been blessed and cursed with having. Yeah. I'm the guy that got charged. I'm the precedent. I'm the only person who legally has standing to actually appeal this. If I don't appeal this, people like you, people that I've never met before, are going to get sick and they're going to die. And that'll happen because I didn't fight. Like, I mean, okay, you know, sure, I could turn around and say, it's not my fault, it's the health department. But I'm in a position where my actions do affect other people's lives. You know, this isn't a, you know, where I'm standing at the till and there's a little $2 donation thing on the thing and I put a coin in and it makes little to no difference, but it's a nice symbolic gesture. This is like seeing somebody being assaulted and stepping in.
Yeah.
You know, not walking away. It's about knowing that there's something you could do, and if you don't do something, bad things are going to happen. You know, if I could pass the baton on to somebody else, I'd give it some serious thought.
Yeah, we spoke about that the other night, didn't we?
Yeah, but it's one of those things. The way I see this, this is my blessing and this is my curse, because there are very few moments in your life. Some people never even get a moment where something happens and they have a chance, they have a choice that they can make, and they suddenly have an opportunity where they can do something that is so much bigger than their own life. It will affect, we don't know how many other people's lives. But I have a chance to make an actual real difference, something that will last beyond my life, where somebody won't die, somebody will be there for their kids. How could I walk away? Yeah, how could I walk away?
Yeah,
that would not normally have been born.
Well, it's true too that cigarette smoking actually reduces fertility. So there's a potential chance that some people will actually be born as a result of their parents not getting infertile 5 years sooner than should have happened.
Yeah,
but maybe.
You know, like you were saying too, you know, about how it impacts a lot of people that you don't know for the good. You know, when you said that to me and you described it like you did the other night to me, I took it on board, but it was, you know, really early in the morning. It was like 5:15 in the morning. And then the next day when me and Jojo were talking about it, you really literally put the spark under us, and now we are definitely fighting the fight. And Vince, you are not alone. You have us. You have all these beautiful people here in the chat. You have the vaping militia willing to help and support and give you documents, anything that could possibly help you in any way. We've spoken about some documents that I'm going to hand you. You know, there's many things, but I'm really sure that we're going to have a lot of people in this room right now really chomping at the bit to ask you some questions. Are you wanting to take some questions? Because they've been pumping questions in, but, you know, I wanted to get your story out so they can hear it from the horse's mouth instead of all these smear campaigns.
Well, guys, have at me. You know, treat it as an AMA. Ask me anything. If I can't answer a question because it might affect the legal outcome of something to come, then I can't. But I highly doubt that'll be the case. Everything is pretty much an open book here. So, yeah, if anyone has a specific question that's been bugging them or an idea that they think is, you know, important to share, go for it.
There's a few questions popping up
Okay,
in the chat.
Okay, let me just read Angry Ant's one.
Yeah.
Hey, pass.
Yeah, okay, Angry Ant. Yeah, that is how it works. They can, I don't know how it works in other states, but in WA, a decision made by a lower court can always be appealed to a court that is higher than the court that made the determination. So when that happens, unfortunately, no, they don't do a new trial. So the only thing that happened when the appeal was lodged by the health department against my acquittal was that the Supreme Court judge was given all of the information as to the existing case, all testimony that had been entered, all documentations and submissions that had been made, and was restricted in making her determination at only looking at that information. So at that point in time, it didn't even matter if we had fresh or new evidence. So to define what that is, new evidence means something that existed before, but we didn't raise it. So like a study that was done in 2012, but we didn't think to use it. And fresh evidence is when a study has just been completed and the information wasn't available at the time of the trial. Now, we are able to, in this appeal to the Court of Appeals, introduce new and fresh evidence, but we weren't able to do that in the Supreme Court appeal that I lost. I'm not sure why, because I wanted to make submissions, but the only submissions we were allowed to make were submissions that were for consideration in sentencing, but nothing to do with the actual decision.
Okay, the JoJo's popped a question that one of the other people had said. Does America's position affect your situation at all, Vince?
Sorry, does America's
position affect your situation at all?
Yes and no. You know, obviously, we are not America. We have our own courts and we have our own situation, but studies that are done and determinations that are done in other countries will be given some substance. They will look at it. So if the FDA makes a decision, it might possibly be that decision could be used. I'm hearing silence. Is anyone able to hear me still?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, good. They will certainly consider stuff. You know, they will consider the science and the laws made in other countries, but it won't be carte blanche. If the FDA says one thing, we don't use the FDA. We use the TGA. Now the TGA will generally take a lot of guidance, if you will, from the FDA. They all tend to follow suit. So, you know, but they're often at odds as well. So we, you know, yes and no. There's not really a clear answer on that. It's very specific to the situation.
Okay.
Carolina Hayes, yes, there is a petition. If someone could paste the link, there we go.
It's already there. We have our link ninja,
Good.
Ice Cold Goldsy. He's always popping links when we need it.
Please share that link around. We do need to get as many signatures as possible. We will be presenting that, you know, however many signatures and comments. If you can take, you know, 2 minutes to write a well thought out comment to go with your signature, that would be particularly useful. What I do encourage people to do, and I understand that it's difficult, when you make a comment, whether it's to somewhere like the GoFundMe page or to the petition, try not to personally attack the judge, because remember, these comments are going to be viewed by 3 other judges that are peers of the judge that you're criticising. So we want to come across as really well thought out, reasonable people who are making an educated argument and are fighting for our personal right to not get sick and to not die, and for, you know, education and science to be used when making these determinations. So we don't want to come across, as Mike Daub called us, a silly cult. We want to come across as clear, rational people.
Vapor Captain Drew has a really nice question for you. No, not officially. There are a few individual GPs that I have heard tangentially, but not had direct contact with, that have indicated that they think that the devices are very useful, that they do actually promote them to their patients and whatnot. There's also anecdotal evidence that some of the hospitals have actually been actively encouraging people to use them. You know, there was reports made that were even referenced in the news about people that were going to Royal Perth Hospital and were being told to go to a vendor in a nearby mall and buy electronic cigarettes from there to use while they were in hospital. And I've heard of people. I've even heard of a vendor who has close ties with like an aged care facility, and goes in there and, you know, and provides to all of their, you know, former smokers electronic cigarettes, shows them how it works, has taught all the staff how to fill up the personal vaporizers for their aged care, you know, for the aged people living there.
But no one is willing to put their head up above the parapet, if you will, and state, I am a medical doctor and I think that this is what it should be. There's certainly been individuals in other countries that have, but no one has been brought yet to my attention in Australia as a doctor who's standing up and fighting for it. Unless you consider maybe Dr. Coral Gartner. She's been a pretty open-minded medical professional and has weighed in on the issue. And she did sign the letter that was signed by 58 highly reputable experts from around the world, sent to the World Health Organization, imploring them to look at their position and change it.
And like
Vince? Sorry to interrupt. We have a request from the founding member of the Vaping Militia to come and join us in the hangout, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure. I don't actually know much about them. I don't know nothing about the background, but I'm happy to chat with anyone.
They're basically doing exactly the same as we are doing, but in the United States, informing people. Giving them all
Excellent. Sounds like a like-minded individual.
Exactly. So it'd be great to have him in. Jojo, go ahead, and once he's come in, we'll put him on cam, and yeah, it'd be great.
Awesome.
So how are you all feeling about Vince being in the room? I told you we'd deliver. He's amazing. Remember, guys, we've got to support Vince 1,000%. Not only in Australia, but everywhere, worldwide, because whatever happens here in Australia is going to happen in America too. It's going to happen worldwide. So just keep that in mind, guys. Okay, here we go.
Welcome, Joe.
Welcome in, Joe.
Well, thank you very much. Vince, first, I'd like to thank you for what you've gone through, because there's not very many people that experience the level of scrutiny that you've had to go through, and I can definitely respect the things that you've done and the sacrifices that you've made. I know that as a group of people, as the militia, which more like it's like an information network and an activist network in the U.S., we've been looking at what's going on, but one of the things that puzzles us is we don't have the understanding of the laws and the government structure, so we're not quite sure how to reach out and give you a hand. But understand that hand's there. We want to help you make a difference.
Look, that sentiment is as much as I can ask for. There's different ways that everyone can help. I think the most significant way that people can help is through the sharing of this information. It's about spreading awareness of what's actually happening in Australia. There's a lot of people that don't really get the fact that there's a disconnect, I feel, globally, where people sort of think, well, I feel bad for that guy in Australia. That sounds pretty crap. But at the same time, they kind of feel insulated. It's not me. It doesn't affect me. That's not going to happen to me. That wouldn't happen here. But, that's Australia. These guys must be some sort of backwater. I mean, this is ridiculous. But it wouldn't happen here. Well, I'm telling you, that's what everybody thinks until it happens to you. And this is where it starts. You see, Australia and America have a very weird little symbiotic relationship where Australia is basically like another state of America. We get all the reward of America's military infrastructure, and in exchange, we pretend to be some independent nation that always says what America wants. When America says we're going to invade somewhere, and you need some support, Australia's right there saying, yep, we'll send in our special forces with you. We've got to do this. We're just an extra voice to validate the Americans. And I'm telling you, it goes both ways. The Americans are going to use this against Americans. It's going to start in Australia, and it has started in Australia. WA is the first state, but 2 more states have basically identical legislation. If I win the appeal, this thing will go away. If I lose the appeal, 2 states will quickly follow suit. Then there'll become a ruckus, right, within Australia, saying that the other states need to amend their legislation to fall in line with the progressive other states that have already outlawed this horrible, cancerous, invasion of these devices, these sick things that are trying to, get into our kids and infect a new generation for the tobacco companies. And then, within a short period of time, it'll be Australia has blanketly banned electronic cigarettes. And, first they'll go for the sale of them. Okay, they'll go for the hardware. Then they'll say, well, now there's a loophole that's allowing Australians to import them from other countries. That's a loophole. They're going to keep, that's what the angle they'll take. And then they're going to say, well, let's put some legislation in to ban the importation of these devices. All right? And they did this very successfully with snus. Most Australians have never heard of snus. No idea. Right?
Yeah.
In Sweden, they've got the lowest rate of smoking in the world. And snus is widespread in use. But it got buried here before anyone found out about it. And, so going back to what I said, what will happen is Australia will then become an example to other countries for how taking a strong stance is the way forward. And this is how we cleanse the evil, right? And then it'll be used first in one state in the US, right? But as soon as you get it into one state, some other state will use the precedent set by that other state. And it'll just keep going in a random dominoes effect. It won't be like click, 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 click. It'll be like click over here, click over there, click over here, and before you know it, there's a big spiral of domino pieces that have all been connected. They all fell down at different points, but they all fell down. And if we stand up today, and we unite, and we fight back, and we win this thing, the very first piece doesn't fall down. And the others, and it'll be very difficult now to push the other pieces over. I'm not saying this is the only battle we're, as Vapers, globally going to face. We're gonna have so many of these. But if every time we don't contest it, every time we stand apart from each other and say it's happening over there but it's not happening here, we give them a piece for free. This is where the army invades. This is where the boats are trying to pull in and create a beachhead. Give them this and they'll take the next pass. And then they'll control that bridge, and before you know it, they've fortified behind it, and they just keep pushing out. Yeah.
Are they trying to actually regulate it as a medical device? Is that what they're trying to do there?
No, there's been no talk of that. They're trying to skip that. See, that's the way other countries are going. See, there's definitely a global conspiracy in play here. If you look at the laws, right, and what's being done all around the world, it defies logic. All of the studies indicate, all of the studies indicate, like almost unanimously, not one study has said that they could be more harmful. Some have said we need to do more research to know what, to know what the long-term effects are. But I mean, honestly, us that are potentially existing tobacco users. I'm not anymore, but many people we know are existing tobacco users. Does it make sense to say we should ban them until we've got 20 years of data? And then after 20 years, if we're sure that there's no real long-term effects, now we can allow them? And think about how weird an idea this is for a second. Because if you actually ban them in the first instance, you're never going to have 20 years of data to analyze.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what
how does that work?
I don't get it. That's exactly right. You nailed it. I don't get it.
This is honestly, when you get to the heart of this thing, this is about money. This is not about lives. This is not about health. This is not about humanity. This isn't about good, right? Moral ethics. Nothing. None of that comes into it. This is about the Australian government wanting to protect $8+ billion of tobacco tax. Right? They're addicted to that tobacco tax. In Australia, they have constantly raised the tobacco tax. And nobody says anything about it. Because in Australia, there's only 15–20% of Australians that smoke. And they've spent 20 years demonising smokers. telling the world that we're disgusting people, doing a disgusting thing, imposing a cost on everyone around us, and we should be punished. And if we want to keep doing this, the best form of encouragement to get us to stop is to keep raising prices. But that's crap. It's nonsense. That isn't the motivation, it's the money. In Australia, our economy is nothing like the US's. $8 billion is a lot of money in the Australian economy. If you looked at our recent budget and how horrible it is and how badly everybody's been affected, like unilaterally across the board, $8 billion. If you had an extra $8 billion, most of the cuts we've made wouldn't have happened. And if you had taken $8 billion out of our budget, oh my God, you know, would we even have schools? I mean, the amount of money is not inconsequential. And to put it, to give context and case in point to this, in Italy, they've actually gone through the equivalent of the TGA process. Okay?
Yes, they have.
The equivalent of the FDA, and they have a product that has been promoted and endorsed by the Italian government. And after that happened, there was a big uptake in it. And within, it was less than a year, the politicians were openly in their parliament saying, we're losing too much money from the tobacco tax.
Yeah.
So they introduced an 80% tax on e-cigs in Italy because they couldn't bear the financial loss. And they weren't imposing that cost on electronic cigarettes because they wanted people to stop using them. No, they straight out said, we can't afford the money.
Well, they've also had additional taxes on top of that 85% in Italy. And there's actually 2 different taxes that get assessed on it now because they are so hungry for money. And we see this in the United States all over. This year was the first round of the taxation that we saw at the state level. Of course, there's been some already existing in Minnesota for 2 years now, but that's one of the things in the U.S. that I've been saying all year is 2015 is the year of the e-cigarette tax. They're going to go. Every state is going to try to get their fingers into it.
Yeah, I mean, look, and when you follow the money trail, and you suspend your belief in the fundamental good of society, and suspend your belief that in a democratically elected world, good will win out. Because I'm going to ask you for a minute to put that belief on hold. Because it doesn't matter if we live in progressive Western worlds of, you know, democratically elected officials and we can vote them out. The reality is this greed, this corruption, it's endemic. It's in everywhere. It's not just about the government taxes. There's a pharmaceutical industry with billions of dollars on the line. They're selling their patches and their gums and their own inhalers that work exactly the same as an electronic cigarette, in effect, and certainly have the hand-to-mouth action, right? But they're okay because they've paid the TGA, and the government gets to tax them, and they also are completely ineffective. So it's okay to have a product side by side if it's not going to actually reduce the amount of smokers. So the government's like, fine, yeah, you can do your medical stuff because, well, it doesn't work. So that's fine. We'll get some extra tax from the people that are trying to quit before they go back to the tobacco where we get our tax. And then you've got you've got your pharmaceutical and you've got your big tobacco and your government taxes. And big tobacco and the pharmaceutical industries are very powerful, wealthy lobby groups who give the governments incredible amounts of money to slow down, to pass laws that don't achieve anything, to just waffle on. This is how it goes. And the government wants to say that they're anti-tobacco, but they'll still do things like subsidize a tobacco farm and give them basically free water. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. But it happens.
Well, you also got the other gainer in here. Let's face it. If you break down the tobacco taxes that go through, that money gets whitewashed around and gets thrown right back at public health. So public health has a very incredible stake in making sure that the current status quo does not change.
Mm.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it's disturbing when you look at, because I find myself asking questions, like in WA, we have a cancer council, and it's you know, it was always my belief that the Cancer Council's reason for existence was to raise funds for cancer research, to assist people who had cancer, to promote activities that would reduce cancer. They were anti-cancer. That's what when I gave money to the guys that knocked on my door or were jiggling the can in a shopping mall, I thought I'm helping to save people from cancer. Well, the Cancer Council in WA have come out and said no to e-cigs. These are bad. We should be doing everything we can to stop them. Now, why would they do that? Like, if there was compelling science, I'd go, all right, fair enough. But there isn't compelling science. All they've got is 3 words, which don't really make any sense. The precautionary health principle. That's it.
Yep.
All they say is,
we don't know in the United States.
We just don't. We're not sure, and we want to, we want to be 100% sure before we say okay.
Yeah.
But if you ask them the question, do tobacco products cause cancer, disease, and death? They can say with 100% certainty, yes, they do. So I don't understand. It's okay to go to the shops and buy the tobacco that we know kills you for sure, but we're going to use the precautionary health principle to say that until we can say with 100% certainty there's nothing bad, and I mean nothing, like not even it's less bad, because already all the science is saying there's no way it could be more harmful, ergo it is less harmful. No, it has to be 0 harm, right? So why would the Cancer Council do this? And I mean, I've asked myself this question, and this is a pretty cynical point of view, but I do wonder, could the Cancer Council be pro-cancer? I mean, if suddenly a lot less people had cancer and people weren't getting sick, would they get less funding? Would there be less positions available in the Cancer Council? I mean, that's a monstrous idea. I mean, surely that cannot be reality. But if we put it into the context of looking at the world and everything that's happened before, and we look at the corruption and what really motivates people to make decisions, it tends to come back to money. So is it really that far-fetched? Is it really that hard to believe that maybe, and I'm not saying everybody that works for the Cancer Council feels this way, but maybe there's 1 or 2 people that do, and maybe they are in positions of power.
Yeah.
I don't
Vince,
know.
I guess there's one other question. I want to go back to what you've talked about, and in the United States, when there's a law that is we don't feel is just, we can use public opinion, and public opinion then going into talking to our congressman to be able to change or amend those laws. Do you have a similar structure in Australia that can happen?
Well, in effect, yes. I mean, because the way that this should have been resolved in the first case was, if the health department felt that this was something bad, then they should have lobbied members of parliament saying we feel the existing laws are inadequate and that these products are dangerous. And the legislators would have then said, okay, well, show me some evidence. Show us why we should introduce a law, which is pretty much, in my opinion, why they didn't go that path, because it would never have worked, right? Okay. But yes, we, the community, the Australian people, have the right to lobby and write letters, knock at our MPs' doors, request meetings, sit down and express our views. And absolutely, if there was an overwhelming outpouring of people doing that, I'm confident laws would rapidly change. Unfortunately, as I said before, in Australia, there's only around 15% of us that are even smokers. So the 85% that aren't smokers, well, they don't really they don't care. Most of them just think it doesn't affect them, right? They forget about the fact that every single one of them has a family or friend who is a smoker, who's going to die or get sick, right? They forget about that. But we're trained to forget about that. Don't pay attention to that. Just, it's their fault. They're stupid. They should have just quit.
There's also that profound attitude that, we should just quit or go away and die.
Yeah, that's right. Preferably quietly, if you could. Thanks.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, people like Mike Daub, he just cannot believe the audacity of us to get angry and indignant when he spouts absolute nonsense as fact when he absolutely ignores all of the science, selectively chooses 1 or 2 studies that have been completely debunked, and misrepresents the entire issue to the Australian public, and then we get angry and write angry letters to him saying, why are you being so selective? Why aren't you being objective? Why aren't you telling the whole story? He just cannot believe the audacity that we wouldn't just sit down and quietly die. I mean, it's so rude. Why won't we just stop and die?
Well, that's the very thing that we've done in the vaping militia is we refuse to go silent. We refuse to sit there and be Mr. Nice Guy. And yeah, sometimes we even get a little bit rude. But you know what? At least the voice gets heard. And I encourage you guys to do the same. And you've got our attention. So I'm not sure how much the external voices will help, but you can sure count on them.
Well, one thing I would ask you guys in the vapor militia, if you could do, is every one of you has a vendor that you currently buy product from. Every vapor buys product. Talk to your vendors and tell them that this issue is important. That it's not one guy and he's somewhere far away and it doesn't affect you. Tell them that this affects you and it affects your buying preference, that you would prefer to buy from a vendor who supports the right to choose, even if it's not your customer that they currently have. I mean, at the end of the day, Australians eventually aren't going to be able to buy from anyone. And we might be a small market, but that's going to spread. It's going to be a growing trend. If they want their business to sustain, and if they care even a little bit about not just their business, but about doing the right thing and about saving somebody they haven't met, they're giving them a chance to have a full, fulfilling life, then donate something to the cause. Yeah. You know, I put a trust deed out and showing where the money goes. And if those vendors donate money and there's money left over, they can ask for it back. It doesn't go to Vince. Everyone's entitled to their money back, but I do need enough money to make this fight happen. And honestly, in the future, what we really need, what every vapor needs and every vendor needs, we need a global body, a global vendor alliance, right? Because as I said, this is not going to be the only fight. This is going to be one of dozens we're going to fight in the coming years, right? Now, if you put all of our collective incomes, the vapors and the vendors in particular, together, we have a lot of money. Yeah. I have very little money. But all of these vendors, they have a lot. They're making money every day. They're selling product and they're making a profit. Now, if we all join together and say, all right, we'll join a union, if you will, a vaping union, right? And every time one of our members gets criminally attacked by some stupid lobbyist, some idiot legislator, we turn our resources against them. And instead of it being David versus Goliath, where we are constantly the David, standing alone, we become the Goliaths, right? And every legislator will be too afraid to come after us because they'll know that our funding is limitless. And you've got to justify your position. If you're going to come up against us and we're going to fight, and even if it costs us millions of dollars, we're going to fight and we'll beat you, they're going to stop when they realize that it's useless. But that only works if we come together, if we stand on each other's shoulders and be Goliath. We can't win this as 10,000 separate Davids.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
Absolutely.
We've been working with 5A in France a little bit, and with there's 2 UK Vapers groups that we've been talking to and exchanging data, and perhaps it's time to step the game up a little bit further than just data.
Yeah, I mean, I just think when you send somebody a letter, it can have a bit of an impact. When you send them a message, it can have a little bit of an impact. But if anybody's able to have a verbal conversation, enter a dialogue with your vendor, call them up and say, I want to talk to the manager. I want to know, where do you stand on this issue? Because it's really important to me. I'm your customer, and I want to be your customer, and I want to know that you're one of the vendors that actually cares about doing the right thing. Validate why I should spend my money at your store instead of that store who has actually contributed and isn't just being self-serving. I mean, I'm not saying business shouldn't be in business to make money, but this particular business is one that does 2 things. It makes money, but it also changes and saves lives. Can't a vendor be both?
Yeah, one of the main principles that we've talked about from the militia standpoint is when you come in, we expect people to do their due diligence to find out if those vendors that they're buying from are part of the fight to actually save vaping. If they're there to make some money, you shouldn't be spending money there. And I guess that same message kind of goes on a global scale too. I mean, if you're not willing to put up for the whole enchilada, I mean, you need to pay attention to where you do spend your money as a consumer. And vendors need to hear that message, that if they're not participating, we're not going to spend no money with you.
Exactly. And see, look, I support you 100% in that, Joe. The thing is that's why we originally made the Australian Vapers Network, me and Jojo, because I'm not going to sit in a forum behind a keyboard and behind a screen and not be heard just by a few words on the forum. I want to get this out there. I want to push this. I want to make it so I have the right to choose if I want to vape or if I want to smoke tobacco. And my choice is I want to vape. I've made significant health improvements since vaping. I used to use my puff 4 times a day when I was smoking cigarettes, and now I've used it 5 times in the last 12 months. You know what I mean? And that's why we're trying to do our part here in Australia as Australian Vapers. And we are 100% behind Vince and the cause. We are 100% behind it. And that's why we thought that it was our due diligence to bring him on the show, make everyone aware, stuff all these bullshit smear campaigns that have been going on, stuff all these, half-assed, documents that have been put out. We want to hear it from the horse's mouth, exactly what happened and what's going on and how we can, get together as a vaping community and support Vince in the cause. And that's what we are doing. That's our intention. That's our goal. And far beyond just Vince's cause, we want to keep going after the court case has been, done or whatever, whether or not it gets passed or, it gets thrown out or whatever. We're going to give support to the vaping community non-stop because, as I see it, fuck big tobacco, man. Fuck big pharmaceuticals. We need to fight for our right to live. And if this is what we have to do, so be it. Let's just do it.
Yeah, I mean, look, the other analogy is, a lot of people care about humane treatment of animals. So you see a lot of people getting on Facebook and starting campaigns, or Greenpeace will start a campaign saying, ban the export of live animals, or don't buy products from this company because they use slave labor in this country and this country. And as consumers, we have actually been able to change the world just through our consumption of products by simply making a choice and saying, I'm going to support the responsible vendor, the responsible manufacturer who doesn't, use children to build their shoes, who doesn't put dangerous chemicals in the foods because it's cheaper and they just don't care if we get cancer and die. And we have affected changes, and it's the same thing, right? You're lucky. Every person that's listening to me right now, you're one of the lucky few that actually discovered vaping. You discovered it early enough that it's making a difference in your life. There's a whole bunch of people that the governments and health authorities and I don't know what to call them, people are trying to deny this right and this information to other people. And vendors should feel, I think, a responsibility to share. It's in their interest. Every existing tobacco smoker that comes across and becomes a vapor is a new customer, right? And they're being rewarded by our custom. They're making money. And I don't think it's such a big ask to say, well, in return for our custom, defend our rights as consumers. Fight for us when we need you. Otherwise, I'd rather support the vendor who does support my rights and will fight for my rights.
Yeah, it's a shame I don't know the numbers worldwide, but I know that in the U.S. alone, 400,000 people each year continue to die from illnesses related to tobacco usage, to tobacco smoking. And in our hands, we have the one answer that can change that immediately.
It's the most significant tool we've ever had.
Yeah, I mean, and all we have to do is be a little bit noisy and get the word out here, and get the vendors that are supporting us in the right manner. I mean, yeah, let's face it, this particular industry right now is ripe for the picking. And you put out a new mod, we jump all over it, very foolishly. We need to start being smart and responsible consumers, and we need to make sure those vendors that are part of this fight, that are actually doing the right thing, get our support so that they can continue and expand. I'm going to I've got some serious phone calls that I'll be making through the next few days, and Chuck will get with you guys about getting some contact information, because I think we can make some changes that'll work.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's about incentivizing. It doesn't necessarily mean that we need to punish vendors who don't help, but we should certainly reward vendors that do. If somebody's willing to give up a % of their profit because they believe in doing the right thing, then I want to give them my money when I buy hardware, because at least I know some of it's going to help something that matters to me. If you've got a vendor who's been fantastic to you, I'm not telling you that you should stop buying from them. Okay? If they're a great vendor and they've done so much for you over the years and they've been really great with all the returns, I'm not asking you to leave them, but I am asking for you to talk to them and try and change their mind. But if they've got the best stock and the best products and the best service, then reward that, because that's a good business and they deserve your business. But at the same time, I personally, if I don't have a business in the future and I'm just a consumer, I'll be directing my money to the vendors that I see as good business citizens that are fighting for the rights and supporting each other and not being selfish. This is a massive market. We don't have to be so self-centered, oh, I can't support him because he's my competition. Think bigger. There's a big enough market for all of us. Yeah, I don't know how else to say it. I would have thought that what I'm explaining right now, I honestly would have thought was intuitive, and I would have expected so many vendors to have jumped behind this a long time ago, and you wouldn't believe how difficult it's been to get vendor support, and I'm managing to garner a little of late, but it really shocked me. I mean, I'm not going to name a name right now, but there was a big vendor in WA, the biggest, I would say, in WA. And when I came out of court after losing at the Supreme Court, before I'd even gotten to my car, I called this vendor up and I said, I need you to know this. I need you to listen to me, okay? I've just been charged. They're going to come for you, right? You're the biggest vendor. They're going to come for you. You need to take mitigating steps. You need to act now immediately. Reduce your exposure. Talk to your lawyers. Get advice. Verify what I'm saying, okay? And he didn't really believe me. He was skeptical. But in the end, I was persistent, and I'm not going to acknowledge that, Jager. And he contacted his lawyers, and then that was it. They shut down the next day, and then he refused to take any calls from me. And that guy was shipping several hundred orders a day. He would have been making, I'm speculating, but he probably was making, let's put it this way, he had 5 full-time staff in a warehouse, right? He was making a lot of money. He could have single-handedly funded this entire appeal. But instead he just shut up shop and didn't take a call from me. And
one of the things one of the things that really surprises me is you hear vapers and they hear about these types of things, and to them it seems like, okay, well, they're going to shut me off and I'm not going to be able to buy my product anymore. Well, I tell you what I'll do. I'll just go buy this and I'll have enough to last me forever. And I guess people don't get the big picture here. They don't get the idea that, okay, yeah, your butt's all covered. You're fat, dumb, and happy where you're at. But think about everybody who won't find out about what's going on here. Everybody that won't get the chance to leave cigarettes, won't get the chance to make that choice for themselves if we let these people succeed. And that's the part that really drives me insane.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. When this first happened, when this sort of began, and they were appealing it and everything, and sorry, when I lost the appeal in the Supreme Court, I looked at the time because I thought, okay, I've fought this all the way on my own because I thought I could do it. But at this point, I'm down. I'm out. But there's still a chance for me to fight on. What should I do? And I was really at a loss. And so I did a Google search for Vapers in Australia, and I found a forum that appeared to be the biggest forum in Australia. And I went and told my story there. And everyone was like, "Oh my god, this is terrible." Right? And it was quite supportive for a little while. And then suddenly, after a little while, they started infighting amongst themselves. Yeah. And there was a whole bunch of them that really took the angle of, this doesn't affect me. Who cares about this guy? I can still buy my stuff from overseas.
Yeah.
And it was just shocking. Like the selfishness, the sort of inherent selfishness of a great deal of people. It wasn't just one or two. There were quite a few people that just didn't care about their fellow man. It didn't matter. It's like, I'm fine. I can still buy it. And if I see a ban coming on the winds, exactly like you said, they said, I'll just order a shit ton. I'll just order a 30-year supply. I'll be right. It's like, yeah. And what I couldn't believe is when they said it, you could hear it in the tone of their choice of words. They thought they were really clever. Like, how smart am I? I'll be right. Doesn't matter. Everyone else, they'll be fucked. But I'll be right, so therefore I'm really smart, right? Everyone, give me a pat. Can I have a clap? Yeah? Yeah. I'm awesome. Like, what the hell?
Even starting this show, we had pushback, like, please don't poke the bear. We shouldn't be poking the bear. Everything's settled down in WA. Leave it alone. Yeah. And I'm like, you're fooling yourself to think that because things have settled down, that they're going to leave us alone.
Yeah, no.
It's not going to happen. They want us to crawl in a corner and die, like you were saying earlier. It's not going to happen. We're getting more aware of the situation, so we just got to, keep pushing through it. There are going to be the haters. There are going to be the trolls trying to drag us down and pull us through the mud and put us over the hot coals. But hey, that's why we have to unite as one.
And the whole argument about don't poke the bear, it's like, look, guys, I'm sorry, but this bear that we refer to, he's a lazy bear, but he's an angry bear, and no matter what you do, he's going to try to eat you, right? He's going to claw you for no particular reason. If you poke him, he might turn around and growl at you first, but trust me, he's going to do it to you anyway. It's just a matter of when. Deferring it for a few months doesn't achieve anything. All you're doing is letting the bear eat one at a time.
The bear's just going into hibernation for now. That's it.
Oh yeah.
No, and that's the thing. No, you're fooling yourself if you think he was ever hibernating. The more digging I've done into this, I've heard from politicians, right, that have spoken, quietly and said, no, mate, this was going on for years. They were working on this case against you for years before they brought it against you. They were quietly biding their time. They were picking the right target. This was a plan. It's the first move in a series of calculated steps. No matter how quiet you were, didn't matter if you poked the bear was crawling around, making moves. They might not have known about it, but trust me, that bear, he ain't sleeping. He's really quite dainty. He can move quite quietly if he wants to.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want us to draw media attention to the bear attacking the good citizens.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
He wants us to quietly die.
So does anyone else have any other questions, I guess, for Vince or Joe?
There was actually just Victory Vapes was saying, they only make, maybe 7 or 8 sales per day, and they've donated towards Vince's cause to support him, which I
thank
admire.
You, Victory Vapes.
Victory Vapes is one of our sponsors on our show. Good shout out to Victory Vapes.
Thank you very much.
And Vapor Caper Mildura.
Sorry, do a quick plug and then I'll say thank you.
No, I was just going to say, you know, all our sponsors that are in here that are actually contributing. I know that our Australian sponsors are contributing to your cause 100%. Our US sponsors are now aware of you, and also a lot of our US fellow vapers have been aware of you since day one that we started Australian Vapers Network. We are 100% behind you, Vince, and all I have to say is, mate, is you're not alone. You have an army of us fighting behind your back, helping you. You know, when you're feeling like you're about to fall, man, we're going to help you. We're going to pick you up. We're going to give you the steam you need to push forward, and that's just what it's about. You know, you're not alone. We're here for you.
Look, I really do appreciate that.
If anybody comes to the vaping militia side, and if they put a donation in to support this effort, if they tag it in the comment, we'll get it right down to you guys.
Amazing.
Guarantee you that.
It's greatly appreciated. I haven't had time or opportunity to thank everybody who has donated. In the early days of the campaign, I tried to personally thank every person that made a donation. It's become a little bit challenging lately to keep that up. I've got a lot of things that I'm always sort of working on, most of which I can't really ever talk about when I'm working on them, because I don't like to ever say anything and get people excited and then not deliver on it. So it's really quite frustrating. You know, I see people all the time asking for updates and stuff, and it's like, look, I could tell you a whole bunch of things that are going on right now, but until they happen, they're not real. You know, no matter how much time I spend on them, they're not real. You know, there's money coming. I am in negotiations with some vendors, and there is some seriously significant money coming. But I shouldn't even be saying that now, because I don't want, what if somehow it doesn't happen? Until that money hits that trust fund, it's not there for sure. You know, like I've made a deal with a great number of vapers that have come together, vendors that have come together, and I made a personal promise, right? They wanted something from me, and I wanted something from them. They wanted me to pledge that I would appeal no matter what, and I asked them to pledge a given amount of money, and if we both made these promises to each other, I would make the appeal. Now, I've kept my end of the deal. I've made the appeal. My entire financial future is now on the line, because if I lose this thing, I don't have anywhere near enough money to cover the prosecution costs. And I'm currently building a house. You know, it's my first house. I've been renting my entire life. I'm building my first house. I've got a old disabled mother who can't look after herself anymore, and she can't afford rent. So I'm building a house with a granny flat, you know, built into it so they can look after her. And if this thing falls apart, I'm going to lose all of that. And I'm in now, in for a penny, in for a pound. I can't back out.
Yeah.
And I've just got to hope that the vendors that promised that they would do what they said they'll do, will do what they said they're going to do. But their money is still not enough. I'm still banking on the fact that I've got a few months until this thing comes to a close, and I've got to generate some extra capital, because we don't know. Even if I win now at the next leg in the Court of Appeals, there is one left. You know, the health department have unlimited funds.
Yeah.
I'm paying with my tax to the government, for the government to pay for the state solicitor's office to fight me, and they could take this to the High Court.
Yeah.
So, you know, if it goes to the High Court, we're going to be looking at like another 150 grand easily.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, you know, every time we think we're getting there, it's like the bar gets raised. Like, honestly, it's like one insurmountable battle after another. But the only thing I can try and reassure people is this thing has been insurmountable from the get-go. And yet every insurmountable barrier that's been before me, somehow, I don't know how, but somehow I've found a way and I've broken through each barrier. And I promise I'm going to do everything I can to break through every barrier they put in front of us and win this thing. But I do need help. You know, and it doesn't have to be financial. It can be just spreading the word and encouraging people to help, or you know, to also spread the word, to contact their vendors, to appeal to people's humanity. That's all I can ask.
And us at Australian Vapers, on behalf of Jojo and myself, the founders of Australian Vapers, you know, we are 100% behind you, Vince, in every way possible. Yeah. We are spreading awareness throughout our show, throughout a lot of other shows. Also, a lot of our American followers that come on the show every time we have a show, and some of them are part of the family now. They are even doing their part. One example is Vape Jesus, who I mentioned to you the other night, Vince. He made a massive video about your cause today on YouTube and uploaded it to get everyone to go and support you and to donate to his, you know, from his vaping community. And like, if you're a vapor, spread the word, because this is going to impact you no matter what. So spread the word. It has to be talked about. We can't just put it under the carpet. So, you know, we just have to unite together. And that's why we support you 100%. Honestly, Vince, we do. And we admire you for the work you are doing for us to have the right to choose.
And it doesn't go unnoticed, because I can tell you that this process for me on a personal level has been incredibly difficult. There's just not enough. I don't have words to express how challenging this has been. The impact it's had on my life, not just financially, but, you know, I've nearly lost, you know, I've gone through a relationship breakdown. I nearly lost my partner. You know, my partner, she supports me, but she doesn't, honestly, at this point, she doesn't support the cause anymore. She's just like, you know, all you do, Vince, is this vaping stuff. You come home and you're on the computer with these vaping people doing stuff. You're on the phone. You know, you're talking with lawyers. You're doing this. You're doing that. You know, when are we going to sit down? When are we going to watch a movie? You know, and it's like, yeah, but I hear what you're saying, and I'm sorry, but if I don't do this now, I'm going to lose the support. You know, these guys have got a few $1,000s they want to throw my way. I've got to hold their hand. I've got to talk to them. I've got to convince them that, you know, that we can do this. You know, all of these things are going on. You know, the lawyers, you know, oh my God, you wouldn't believe the shit that the lawyers put me through. You know, where they fuck up, and then it's on me to somehow miraculously fix it because, you know, some misunderstanding, some miscommunication, some date that they got wrong, some whatever. You know, and it's just like, I'm dealing with all this shit. And you know, someone asked before, you know, do I have a job outside of this? Yes, I do. I have a full-time job. It's the only thing that's paying my bills right now, right? Yeah. And it only just does that. But you know, I hope my employer's not watching this, because I spend half my work day every day on this stuff, right? And my situation at work is at risk because I'm not doing my job, because I have, you know, like, this is more important than my job. But you know, so this is balancing act of like getting just as much done as is required, that no one, you know, has a go at me. It's just so difficult, you know. Yes, I'm a Victory Vape. I'm an IT guy. I'm a system administrator. I fix computers.
The vaping militia just said something to you, Vince. They said, okay, mate, slow down for a day, go buy your woman dinner and some flowers, and just make one day just for you. If there's any way any way possible that we can help relieve that burden so you can have one day dedicated to doing that, please let us know, because we'll be more than willing to help in any way we can. Because, you know, you've got to rely on your family, and your family is what matters too.
Yeah. Look, I hope it's one of those things. I hope that this situation will eventually end, and I'll be able to make good with my family and make up for all of this stuff, and that this is a temporary moment. But, you know, and I ask my family to understand that, you know, I'm not doing this selfishly. I'm doing this because there's a greater good that has to be done. And if there was somebody else who could do it for me, if I didn't have to be sitting here doing this, I think, you know, in all truth, after everything I've been through, I would like, if I could just stop now, I would like to. I would like to be able to come home from work and with no guilt at all, hop online and play some games with my friends. But I can't. Every single time I play games, I'm feeling bad that somebody on the forum's asking a question that I'm not answering, or somebody's on Facebook, you know, with something, or, you know, a vendor's asked me to produce some letter, or, you know, at the moment, I've been asked to write a special custom letter for a group of international vendors. So that's on my things to do list, right? It's mostly done, but not good enough. So, you know, it's going backwards and forwards between people I trust to help me work it out. You know, I've been asked to write a newsletter for an industry group in Australia, a big chunk in that, reaching out to a whole bunch of vendors there. You know, I've got letters that I'm writing, individual letters to various people, like, for example, I'm writing one letter to Clive Palmer, right, appealing to him, hoping, you know, that he'll, you know, maybe be able to offer some political support or potentially financial support. The guy's got, you know, a ridiculous amount of money, and, you know, and he likes to get on the news, so maybe he'll show some interest. So, you know, there's all these little things, and some of them maybe I could farm them out, but most of the time I can't, because the problem is that when you write a letter to somebody, like Clive Palmer, for example, you get one chance. One chance to write a letter that they don't read the first paragraph and throw away, or that their aide doesn't read the first paragraph and throw away. You know, it's like, it's not about, you know, somebody says, oh, yeah, I'll do that for you, Vince, and then I get it back and I'm like, well, no, I really appreciate that, you know, I can see you put a lot of effort into it, but it's not going to be enough. So then I have to actually, you know, I can use it as a starting point and fiddle with it, but it's like, the problem is that I feel a tremendous responsibility with all of the things that are coming at me as tasks, that they pass a certain standard before I do anything. And even my own standards now are dropping, because I'm so tired, I don't even have time to write decent updates on the GoFundMe page, because I just...
Yeah.
I'm just exhausted, you know?
Yeah.
And there's just so many little things to do.
Well, Vince, being someone who's been in a somewhat similar position with what we're trying to do, and it seems like sometimes all the work that goes on, it seems absolutely insurmountable. Again, I just want to let you know that you've got some support from the states now that we hope can lift you up a little bit, help keep your head a little bit above water. Anytime you need to reach out to us, you don't even have to get fancy. Just jot me a note, tell me what the problem is, and I'll see what I can do to jump in there and help you.
I do appreciate it. And if any of you guys know anybody who has had any first-hand experience dealing with the TGA, it'd be great if those people could send me an email, because one of the most significant time-intensive tasks that I have, my lawyers have asked me to do this, and what you've got to understand, a lot of the time when I explain things like this to people, people say, I thought your lawyers do that. Well, I could ask the lawyers to do that, but the lawyers charge me about $1,000 an hour, and that doesn't actually buy you much time. And so everything I can do myself means the money that the appeal has raised goes a lot further. Now, I have an enormous task ahead of me. I have to provide to the lawyers a detailed explanation of the TGA application process. I have to show to the Supreme Court when we go in to do our appeal that in order to get an electronic cigarette approved for use by the TGA, that process requires, and I know the bare outline of this, it costs millions of dollars, right? And it takes years. And the reason is because they want to do trials. They have to do multiple trials with people. Doctors have to, you know, check all these people. They have to correlate the studies. They and the actual TGA process, you know, it's $20,000 to apply to do this, and then it's $8,000 if your product falls into that, then it's $23,000 for this, and $20,000 for that, and this, and that, and that, and this, and that. And if you go to the website and try and figure it out, it's designed, in my opinion, to be overwhelming. Basically, no layperson is ever supposed to be able to get through the TGA process. You know, it's set up in a manner that appears to exclude people by design. it's just my opinion. Not saying it's a fact, but that's what it appears to me. And it's the kind of thing that you basically have to pay a lawyer to figure out your individual TGA process, and then show me the money, big money, and years for all the trials to take place. But the point is, I actually have to construct a document where we can walk the court through and show that this is really what the process is, and therefore requiring for me to, as an individual running a small business, to have done that before I sold these products is discrimination. That it's
Wow.
an unfair burden. And if I can prove that, we win the case.
Yeah.
But can you appreciate how large that task is?
Absolutely.
How much time it actually takes?
Huge.
You know, and you know, there's all these well-meaning people who say, I'm here to help, Vince. But honestly, everyone in the chat room right now, I'm asking you as a question. Do you think you've got enough time to do that? To actually do that whole task? I don't even know, you know, if I could do it, if I had nothing but like full time to spend on it. That's how, you know, that's the kind of overwhelming thing I've got to deal with.
I don't think
Maybe
I could do it, but you know, we could all try to band together in some way to maybe perhaps lighten the load if we could.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe we could. Maybe we could. You know, if anyone knows someone who, as a profession, is like a project manager, who would be willing to donate a bit of their time to help us break the task down. So maybe you know, if we figure out, okay, it'll cost us $2,000 to get a lawyer to map the process, and then we break that down to steps, and you know, somebody can like delegate little pieces out that collectively, as a large group of people, you know, a few hours from this person, a few hours from that person, we can stitch all of these pieces together, make one big picture that we can then present the court. Maybe that'll work. But that's, you know, if anyone knows somebody who's had experience with the TGA, so that there's some work we don't have to do from scratch. If anybody
How similar is that to the FDA?
I believe it's quite similar.
Yeah.
You know, they're our analogy.
I think Bill Gottschall has already broke down some of the steps already for the FDA application process. Let me see if I can get those documents to you. Either him or Dr. Carl Phillips might have also done that. Let me see what I can do, and I'll see if I can get those to you, Vince. It might help you a little bit. I mean, what resources we've got, I'm more than willing to share.
The other thing that would be really useful is if any of you guys have had personal contact with a reputable expert, and you know, you maybe got a more personal relationship in some way, that you could talk to them and see if anyone would be willing to make a formal statement to the court, right, for us to submit, saying that in their expert opinion, these devices are less harmful and shouldn't be burdened by, you know, the TGA approval process. They should be allowed to be sold on the basis that they were designed to be less harmful, and that all the science indicates that they would have to be less harmful. I need some expert.
I touched on that with you the other night, Vince. Once I discuss it with my GP, I will get in touch with you, and we'll talk about them documents that we spoke about the other night. Yeah.
To everyone who's listening right now, if you could go to your GP, you know, for those of you that have an actual GP that you've seen for many years and you have some form of relationship with, and particularly if you've told them about your experience previous to now with electronic cigarettes and how it's worked for you, and maybe they've even done tests on your lungs, for example, you know, before you started and after you started. If you could get them just to write a letter stating that, you know, I have patient XYZ who who's been my patient for the last 12 years. That patient was a smoker. I prescribed them, you know, nicotine cessation devices in the past. They were unsuccessful in their attempts to quit. They've, you know, since then become users of electronic cigarettes or personal vaporizers. They have successfully managed to cease tobacco use as a result. And, you know, it's my medical opinion that this is a positive to the health system and to my patient, and blocking access to this technology would not be in the interests of society. You know, something along that line. It would be so helpful when it comes to making our submissions.
So anyone in here that has any kind of tie to help in any way, no matter how small you think it may be, stand up, put your hand up and say, hey, you know, I can potentially help you.
Yes.
Yep. I guess a good way to contact any of us would be go to the Vaping Militia site, go to our Facebook page. Galty, if you could pop our Facebook page in the links. Yeah.
Or
make us a message.
Or contact Jojo or myself personally, and we'll make sure that Vince gets any of the information that's passed on to us. Keep in mind, guys, that, you know, don't send us, you know, crappy information that is invalid. Send us information that is going to help the case, not confuse the case in any way whatsoever. You know, Vince has touched on everything that needs to be done. If you can help, help. It's that simple, you know, because it is going to affect everyone that vapes.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I get a little bit of information overload with people that want to help, and every day I get at least probably 3 emails from people who, like, Vince, really thought this would help your case, and it's a link to some, like, rubbish news article published somewhere in the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Honestly, they're not particularly helpful. So what I'm asking people to do is use a filter. Use your own mental filter. If you see that there's some new information that's been presented that's genuinely helpful, then please do send it through. But if it's just some opinion piece filled with, like, errors and stuff, it's not going to be admissible in court. It's just, if it's written by a reporter and it's got no experts in it, it's just hearsay. It's just an opinion from an uninformed, uneducated, non-relevant, non-expert person. You know, and if you find a scientific study, just because it mentions electronic cigarettes doesn't mean it's actually a good study. If you're going to send it to me, please read it first, because every time someone sends it to me, I have the burden of reading through a 28-page document, and sometimes I read through it, and I'm like, there's nothing I can really use in this.
Yeah.
So rather than me losing an hour while I analyze a study that's not particularly helpful, read through it and highlight to me the paragraph in it that I should draw my attention to, because I've just only got, like, X amount of time that I can read through these things and filter them back to my lawyers. And if I lose all this time, because there's so many of these studies now, and there are some good ones, but it's like, let's say there was 100 studies out there, out of the 100, 10 of them are going to be useful. And if I have to read 100 of them, I might not even stumble across the 10 out of the 100 that were useful because I never got to it. So, if people have time to read through it, they'll be really, really useful. And Victory Vape, the guys that you're referencing right now, the signatories to the World Health Organization letter, we have been reaching out to them. We haven't had any success yet in them really responding or wanting to participate or support. It would be really useful if individuals could also write letters to these people, telling them how much it means to them, how much it's changed their lives, and how they'd really appreciate it if they could take the time to engage with me on this topic. Because we have tried, and we haven't been successful. But it's understandable in the context that they think it's not that big an issue, because no one's made it into a big issue. But if they actually receive 50 different letters from people saying, please help this guy out, you know, you signed the letter, you know that, you know, you agree with us, could you please help?
Think some international help there might help.
Oh, absolutely. Any expert. I mean, I would love to get, you know, the guy Herbert.
I mean, to get in touch with these guys at the the Cancer Council to get them to pay attention. Oh,
absolutely. We need to make noise. That's what this comes down to.
Well,
we have to be, you know, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. We've got to be the squeakiest effing wheel the world has ever seen. Right?
Well, we're a professional noise-making group, so guess what?
Well, please do direct your noise-making machines, and you know, let's make some noise. And you know, we need to start. You know, people, contact your MP. You know, talk to all your friends, talk to all your family. You know, anyone who's interested, anyone who has the time, ask them to write the letter, ask them to make a phone call. It will start to stack up. The problem is that right now there's only a handful of people that ever bother to make those calls, and so when they do, they're dismissed as some silly cult. Right?
Yeah. I hear you, because
you know,
that happens.
Well, I think if we take the cult international, it might get some attention.
Yeah.
I'm hoping. My fingers are certainly crossed.
Well, that's
sorry, guys, I am still here. I've got my little one walking around behind me, so I'm just going to
does anyone else have anything specific they want to ask?
I know Wayne actually was trying to say something to you before.
So I missed that.
Yeah, Wayne was saying that basically he's doing his own kind of study with his doctors at the moment. Like prior, when he was a smoker, he had severe bronchitis, lung problems and all that stuff. And then they, you know, showed up on his scans that, you know, he had bad lungs and potentially had lung cancer. And then sometime later, after giving up smoking, taking up vaping, that his lungs have actually improved and so on and so on. And it's not just him as well. There's another guy named Charles, we call him Chuck, who's doing the same thing. If any of that information could potentially help you as well, Vince, I'm sure they'd be more than willing to forward them documents to you in a flash.
Yes, I would be very appreciative of any material like that. Specific cases, this is exactly the kind of stuff. I can't say that if you send it to me, it will get used, but I can say that if you send it to me, it will go to my lawyers, and if they can find a way to use it, it will get used. So, you know, I'd rather have the content available to potentially be used than simply not have it because we think, oh, maybe it won't matter. Nah, don't mistake what I said before about sending like random news articles to me with, you know, if you've got medical stuff, that's important. That's really important stuff. So yes, I'd be very appreciative of anyone. As I said before, if you've done anything with your GP, if your GP will say anything, please get it.
Yeah.
So that I can show it. It is respected in the courts. Australian stories are going to be more important than international ones, but international ones will still be important. And who is it? Carolina, do I have a Facebook or web page? Look, our website is still sort of up. If you go to heavenlyvapers.com, we have a website, but it really has nothing there anymore. It was meant to kind of be an information aggregation point where we were going to post everything that's been happening, but it's been the information aggregation that's happened in other places, and it's been more effective to let that be the case. So by all means, go and have a look at heavenlyvapers.com, but there's nothing particularly useful on it. I don't have a specific Facebook page, but the Aussie Vapers Facebook page, if someone could paste that, that's something I do keep an eye on every day. What else? And the New Vapor forum is the most active place where everyone discusses the appeal and aggregates ideas. And when I do need help and stuff, it tends to be that I go onto the New Vapor forum, and that's the first place I ask for help, and then they start to spread the word out. Thanks for that. So the thread there that has just been linked is a bloody long thread now. I think it's up to about 111 pages. It'll take you forever and a day to wade through it. Probably best to just, what I tend to do if I've been out of the loop for a few days, I click to the very last page, I go back about 5 pages, and I work forward from there, because probably anything that's older than that isn't super useful right now. Like, it's still there, and we refer back to it when we're like, oh, who said that? When did they say that? And then someone spends an hour or two trolling through hundreds of pages of stuff. But yeah, that's probably the place to go.
And again, to also emphasize that if you are trying to get in contact with Vince with valid information and you can't get in contact with him via any of the ways that we've posted, you can contact Jojo or myself directly, and we will forward on the information once we have sifted through the information to make sure it's relevant. And we'll make sure that Vince gets that ASAP. Guys, you know, again, I'm proud that you've all come in here and showed respect and love for the cause. Yeah, it's amazing. And again, Vince, I just want to thank you for coming on the show, man. It really means a lot to us, but not only to us, but to the vaping community worldwide. So that's just a personal thank you from me, and also from Jojo, I'm guessing, from the Australian Vapers Broadcast Network. Is there any more questions you guys have for Vince pertaining to anything with the case or anything? Joe, perhaps, do you have any more questions?
No, but the truck will be in touch with you guys. He's going to be kind of liaison for you guys. And again, please, Vince, if you need anything at all, just go. You know, get the information to truck, and we'll do whatever we can for you right away.
Really, really do appreciate it, Joe. I can't thank you enough. It's nice to know that there are people, you know, on the other side of the world who actually, I don't know, care about, you know, fellow humans and are willing to do their bit to help. It means a lot, you know, because it often does feel like a very lonely fight. And I know I'm not alone, but there is a lot I do have to do alone, and it's really, really.
Well, do you want to see how much love you?
It's really important.
Do you want to see how much love you have from all of us, Vince? Everyone.
Is this not suitable for work?
Ones in the room. If you're showing some love, we want to see some ones. We want to see some ones for showing some love to Vince. So I want to see some ones. Come on. If you're about the cause and supporting the cause, I want to see a hell of a lot of ones. Come on, show Vince some love. He needs it. He needs that little moral boost. Come on, all the ones. Want everyone pumping ones.
Now, and now all of a sudden this anti-spam bot's going to kick everybody out.
And see, that's what it's about.
And the other thing too, Vince, is I got word from Truck that we've got a couple of donations that have already come in for you guys, and then the militia's got a little extra. We're going to throw a little extra in there with it and send it your way.
Look, I can't thank everyone enough. This battle literally cannot be won without your help. This is a fight that isn't my fight, it's our fight. And I can't thank you all for being with me and supporting me along the way. So thank you so very, very much to everybody. Most heartfelt thank you so much.
You don't have to thank us, mate. It's our...
Very welcome anytime.
Exactly. You don't have to thank us, mate. We thank you for fighting the good fight for us to have our right to choose.
Definitely.
So there's no thanks needed from your behalf, mate. We thank you, and yeah, we support you.
Yeah. Now I will come back on the show as things progress, if you'll have me. And,
absolutely.
You're part of the family,
so,
mate. You ain't going nowhere. You're the family now.
So yeah, look, hopefully I'll be able to come on a relatively somewhat frequent basis whenever there's something that's important that needs to be shared. I like to give the people that are actively supporting me the inside scoop, as it were, and before I go public with things. So I try to do that where I can on the New Vapor Forum. They tend to find out about things several days or a week or two before I post things to the GoFundMe update. So yeah, hopefully I'll be able to. This will be another medium through which those that are really actively interested in what's going on can be kept up to date with it all.
Well, you've just been told by Vape Boss, you have no choice. You're stuck with us now, mate. we got
Stay as long as you'll have me.
We got you back. Any more comments?
All right.
Any more comments for Vince?
I think we've covered pretty much everything that's important to date.
I think so. So what I'll do is I'll let Joe say his farewells to everyone. Jojo, then Vince, and then myself, and then we'll call it a night, guys. What an amazing show. Again, thank you, Joe. Thank you, mainly Vince. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It really means a lot to us. You're the man, and we got your back. Joe, thank you very much for coming in from the Vape Militia. Very much respected in the community of vaping. And thank you very much for your support and for even coming in, which means a lot to us. So you can say your farewells and your howdy doos or whatever, and then we'll call it a night after we play a little song just to blend out the night.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for coming in, and thanks for the support that we've had for the militia. And Vince, thank you for bringing up the awareness to everybody here that this is not a problem that is just in the U.S., that it's a problem that's a worldwide thing. It's something that we've been looking at a while. Your affirmation in this is very important to me because it's a step that we were about ready to take, and we're more than happy to extend that hand and make it and get it going in a bigger way. So thank you very much for coming on and giving us your story.
Yes.
Thanks for hearing it.
I just want to personally say thank you to Vince and thank you to Joe for coming on in. I really appreciate you spending the time to come on and show everybody what's going on. Also for all the viewers, I would assume Guy can concur with me here. Wednesday night, all the giveaways that would have happened tonight, we have deferred to make a big Wednesday night show.
Oh yeah, we're going to have a massive giveaway show on Wednesday night, guys, and trust me, you're not going to want to miss this show, that's for sure. And Vince, would you like to say goodbye to our viewers?
Yeah, look, guys, thanks again for taking a chunk of your night to listen to me ramble on about all kinds of stuff. I'm sorry if I wasn't as coherent and concise as people would like, but you know, there's a lot to say, and look, I'm not a professional speaker, I'm just telling you what's going on. So again, thank you to everybody for your support, and I'll continue to fight the fight and keep you updated as things progress, and together we shall prevail.
Exactly. Yeah. And now on behalf of myself also, I'd like to thank Vince and Joe for coming on the show. Vince, you're a massive inspiration to us all as Vapers now. We've got your back. We're going to do the best we can to help you in any way we can. Like I always say, guys, you know, go to the links, support the cause, make sure you scroll down and hit the follow button. We're going to have Vince on the show, like he said, when he feels it's needed to update everyone in the vaping community. But like I always say, smoking is not the way. Vaping saves the day. And we will see you on the flip side. Night all.
Good night, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Thanks. Guy.